Greetings from Wisdom Words, a peaceful place to pause and reflect. One story at a time, we examine timeless teachings about life, serenity, and purpose here. So, pause, inhale, and let's get started. Silence can sometimes be more powerful than words. You finally come to the realization that not everyone needs an explanation, not because you have nothing to offer. Being silent does not imply weakness. It's sagacity. It's serenity cloaked with strength. It's when you decide to choose your own serenity and quit struggling to be understood. The quiet turning point when you decide to just be silent instead of arguing, proving, or pleading to be seen is the subject of this chapter. Because they will learn all they need to know from your silence. The influence of silence. There comes a point at which it becomes tiresome to justify yourself. When you try to express your feelings to someone, they either misrepresent your feelings, question your sincerity, or respond as though your suffering is exaggerated. Initially, you protect yourself. You keep explaining in the hopes that they will comprehend. But rather than pay attention, they keep erecting walls. After a while, something changes within you. You understand that people will only hear what supports their perception of you, regardless of how clearly you talk. You then cease elaborating. It's clarity, not defeat, that makes you fall mute. Being silent does not imply that you have lost your voice. It indicates that you have at last mastered its prudent application. The friend who was constantly in need of the final word. Emma had a friend that she loved very much. However, that friend would always talk over her, blame her, and never accept responsibility when they disagreed. Emma would argue her motives for hours on end in an attempt to keep the friendship together. After a lengthy fight one day, she simply stopped responding. Silence, but not in fury. Weeks passed, and an intriguing event took place. Her friend never apologized, never contacted her, and never inquired. The one-sided nature of the friendship was exposed by the silence, which was what the words had been concealing all along. Silence does not always indicate a lack of communication. It's the most truthful version. When you remain silent, people reveal their true feelings about you. Do they make contact? Are they reflective? Or do they go on as if you never existed? Words cannot reveal the reality that your silence does. Silence as power, not giving up. Silence is often interpreted as weakness. They believe that remaining silent indicates that you have given up. However, that is untrue. Restraint is often the appearance of true power. Refusing to applaud back when someone treats you disrespectfully requires bravery. Walking away rather than establishing your value requires self-control. When you have the opportunity to say everything, it takes wisdom to say nothing. Because pride has nothing to do with silence. It has to do with peace. It's the deliberate choice to stop allowing chaos to consume your energies. The argument that didn't need to take place. Daniel was a man who frequently got into arguments with his father. Every minor argument escalated into a conflict, with both parties vying for victory and being correct. Daniel paused in the middle of a sentence one evening. "You know what, Dad, I understand how you feel," he started after taking a long breath, but he stopped there. The argument ended before it started for the first time. The pattern was broken by the silence. That night, Daniel came to the realization that winning every battle does not lead to peace. Knowing which ones aren't worthy of your voice is the first step. Silence is a decision about where to direct your energy, not a way to dodge the truth. You're defending your tranquility against those who profit from disorder. What others can learn from silence. People notice when you stop reacting. They question why you don't respond, why you don't defend yourself, and why you don't seem to care. That's when they realize that your silence is power, not ignorance. Your lack of response becomes louder than any argument you might make. You must occasionally let your quiet teach others what your words were unable to. That your energy, your time, and your tranquility are precious. If someone doubts your loyalty, you don't have to prove it. If someone consistently crosses your boundaries, you don't need to justify them. Furthermore, you don't have to plead for someone to recognize your value. Your silence speaks for itself. Moment of reflection. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you had to explain yourself repeatedly to individuals who didn't listen? When someone didn't care to comprehend, how many times have you raised your voice to get their attention? And did it bring you greater sorrow or peace? Sometimes giving up on attempting to convince people of your point of view is the most restorative thing you can do. Because the cacophony subsides and the truth at last begins to speak when you stop talking. The recovery in silent distancing. Silence is more than just a goal. It's a start, too. Reconnecting with yourself begins when you stop responding to other people. You start to pay attention to your ideas once more. You can hear your own voice, the one that was lost in the commotion. You see how much of your tranquility you gave up to get approval. And you begin rebuilding gradually. Only in quiet moments can a profound form of healing occur. You no longer entertain others. You give up trying to get closure. You no longer justify your value. You simply exist, quietly, freely, and happily. Then you wake up one day and realize that your silence told you everything you needed to know, as well as all they needed to know. It revealed who was interested, who paid attention, who remained, and who didn't actually see you in the first place. Concluding thoughts. Your quiet will bother someone who genuinely values you. It will release them if they don't. In either case, the truth will come out if you remain silent. Take a deep breath the next time you feel the need to defend yourself or to reiterate your position. You don't have to give an explanation to everyone. You deserve to be at ease. Because ultimately, your stillness is clarity rather than emptiness. I've said enough is what your soul is telling you. We'll look at what comes after stillness in the upcoming chapter, including how to regain your peace, find your purpose again, and find the serenity you believed you had lost. For the time being, just keep in mind that you can be understood without speaking. Silence can sometimes speak louder than words. When quietness becomes self-discovery, a pause is followed by an unexpected development. It is uncomfortable at first. You've moved away from those who didn't listen, you've stopped defending yourself, and for the first time in a long time, everything feels calm. It's almost too quiet. However, you soon begin to notice tiny things once more, such as the sound of your own breathing, the morning sun hitting your window, and the calm that arises when your phone isn't blazing. Silence becomes self-discovery at this point. In actuality, you can finally hear yourself when the cacophony subsides. You may be surprised by what you hear. You begin to see how much effort you expended in an attempt to please other people. How often did you put peace before your needs? How many times did you say, "I'm fine," only to get out of a fight? You realize that you were never truly quiet. Your own fear of losing people hushed you. The voice that was hidden beneath all of that cacophony is now finally audible to you. That voice is also serene. Sincerely. Actual. It reminds you of things you used to disregard, like the fact that sometimes isolation is the only way to see things clearly, that self-respect is more valuable than approval, and that calm feels better than attention. A woman named Claire is said to have spent years attempting to mend a relationship that had already broken down. To keep the peace, she always apologized at the conclusion of a dispute. She wrote a lengthy text one day but chose not to send it. She shut off her phone, took a walk, and kept silent. Days later, she understood that the silence was healing rather than hurting. She was at ease for the first time and wasn't waiting for someone else's response. At last, she was making her own decision. That is the effect of stillness. It puts distance between what causes you pain and what brings you healing. You begin to reconstruct your identity in that area. You start to realize that how other people treat you has never defined who you are. You begin to recall your former self before life became so noisy. The things that used to bring you joy return, such as the music you stopped enjoying, the pastimes you gave up, or the private laughing you once had. You come to the realization that the person who harmed you is not missed. The person you were before you met them is the one you miss. And gradually, you begin to revert to that person. The rediscovery of self is the aspect of quiet that most people avoid discussing. The initially uneasy silence turns into the cornerstone of your tranquility. You begin posing fresh queries. What is my true life goal? What sort of individuals would I like to be around? I wish to offer and receive what kind of energy? You begin validating yourself instead of looking to people who have never valued you for approval. You begin to create closure inside yourself rather than chasing it. When you stop fleeing from yourself, you discover that serenity is something you create for yourself rather than something you can find in other people. Another tale concerns a man named Thomas who felt invisible in his friendships. He was the one who always showed up, the one who listened, and the one who helped. But the room fell silent when he needed someone. He made the decision to call no one day. Not with resentment, but with acceptance. Few people checked in over the next few weeks. Although it hurt, the quiet gave him the truth. He discovered that being by yourself does not imply ineptitude. It indicates that you are no longer surrounded by nonsense that passes for love. Thomas began to spend more time by himself. He started to feel lighter, read more, work out, and go on walks without his phone. He found peace in the silence that had formerly frightened him. When you stop attempting to distract yourself with quiet, you end up meeting yourself. You develop the ability to sit with your ideas without requiring confirmation from others. You begin to recognize your own development, resilience, and ability to recover. Why didn't they understand me? You no longer ask. I begin to inquire, why did I keep elaborating? Instead of stating, they changed, you say, I've grown. You understand that silence isn't limited to other people. It's about taking back the authority you lost each time you attempted to establish your value. You learn emotional maturity through silence. It trains you to watch without responding, to comprehend without interjecting, and to leave without making a statement. You come to understand that not every action is worthy of a response. Some things only require distance, they don't require closure. You also understand that distance does not equate to rejection. It serves as defense. You safeguard your energy when you safeguard your tranquility. You stop letting people see how you feel. Not because you're chilly, but rather because you've come to terms with the fact that peace comes at a price, and not everyone is prepared to share that price. Consider how many times you have attempted to explain yourself to individuals who never paid attention. What if you didn't do that anymore? What if you simply shielded your heart rather than demonstrating it? Because choosing yourself over turmoil in silence is where true serenity starts. Silence no longer feels lonely once you get to that point. It seems holy. It turns into your haven, your reset, and a reminder that even when people aren't around, you can still find serenity. The realization that you don't have to react anymore has a certain beauty. You choose to smile rather than defend yourself when someone misinterprets you. You let go of someone without holding grudges after they depart. You know how to find your center of calm when life becomes chaotic again. Silence provides you with self-confidence, spiritual equilibrium, and emotional control. You discover that some storms pass when you stop using your voice to fuel them, and that not all storms need to be battled. Perhaps that is the most profound lesson. Cutting people off is not the purpose of silence. It's about developing a closer relationship with yourself. It's about substituting awareness for noise. You start to have faith that people who are supposed to stay would comprehend your silence. You begin to think that people who genuinely care about you won't need to hear your heart all the time. The presence of insight, not the absence of grief, is what gives you the tranquility you experience right now. Although you are aware that not everyone will see you clearly, you no longer require their assistance. You've gained self-awareness. Don't confuse being quiet with loneliness if you're in that phase of life right now and have ceased defending, proving, discussing, or explaining. You're developing in ways that words cannot explain. The language you are learning is the silent language of peace. You will eventually meet someone who will speak that language without you ever having to exchange words. Takeout. Quietness is not void. It has a ton of solutions. It serves as a link between your former self and your current self. And there's no turning back after you've crossed that bridge. Because you never again seek out noise to feel alive after you find yourself in the silence. We'll discuss how to preserve this tranquility in the upcoming chapter, including how to maintain composure in the face of a demanding and noisy environment. Because peace is where mending flourishes, even though stillness may be where it begins. Safeguarding your calm in a noisy environment. Finding and maintaining peace is the real challenge. There will always be noise in the world around you. Your tolerance will be tried, your boundaries will be pushed, and you will be tempted to revert to your old ways of overanalyzing and over-explaining. Isolating oneself is not necessary to preserve your tranquility. It entails developing the ability to remain composed in the face of turmoil without becoming overwhelmed by it. It feels weird when you first start choosing peace. You no longer respond as you once did. You don't counter arguments as frequently. Every time someone misinterprets you, you don't have to explain yourself. People initially believe that you have changed, and they are correct. Indeed, you have. You've just quit allowing noise to control your emotions. Finding peace doesn't mean that it will last forever. You have to protect it every day. Your decisions, who you let close to you, what you spend time with, and what you decide to let go of, protect it. There is a tale about Laura, a woman who was renowned for her unwavering availability. She felt bad about saying no, her schedule was constantly busy, and her phone was never off. She came to the realization one day that it had been years since she spent a peaceful evening to herself. Every second was devoted to answering messages, resolving issues, and assisting others. She then began to say no, politely but forcefully. She quickly stopped responding. She avoided using her phone on the weekends. Initially, there was confusion. Some even became agitated. Eventually, however, the appropriate ones realized. Laura gradually started to feel at peace again, not because her life became simpler but rather because she had finally found space for herself. That's what it means to keep your peace. It's not self-centeredness. It's self-respect. You have to acknowledge that not everyone deserves access to you in order to preserve your calm. Some people take advantage of your responses. Some people unintentionally deplete your energy. Some people simply don't know how to love uncontrollably. Fixing them is not your responsibility. Protecting yourself is your responsibility. You accomplish it by establishing boundaries, which should be gates that allow peace to enter rather than walls that keep people out. Boundaries sound like, I need some time to reflect before answering. I'm not available at this time. I won't argue with you about this. I disagree, but I respect your viewpoint. Firm, quiet, and simple. No rage. Not guilty. Just tranquility. It's uncomfortable at first. You may feel bad about declining. You may be concerned that individuals will depart. However, the appropriate individuals won't. Those that appreciate you will adapt. It's acceptable for the people who just profited from your lack of boundaries to disappear. Another example concerns Jason, a young man who had a profession that involved a lot of stress. He would always return home worn out and bearing the burdens of everyone else. His tutor once said to him, "You can't pour from an empty cup." At first, Jason didn't get it. However, he soon became aware of how his fatigue caused him to become irritable with his family, aloof from his friends, and estranged from himself. He became aware that he was wasting all of his efforts on pointless things. So he began taking little steps to keep his peace. Walks in the morning without his phone. Before bed, 5 minutes of silence. Refusing to engage in pointless debates. Although it didn't alter the environment around him, it altered his perception of it. That's the key. Although you can't stop the world from being noisy, you can stop allowing it to dominate your thoughts. Learning to let go is another aspect of maintaining peace. Not everything is worthy of being resolved. A final talk is not necessary in every relationship. Not all miscommunications require clarification. Peace can sometimes be found in just leaving with grace. You begin to see that the person who harmed you is no longer in control of you. Their remarks don't hurt as much. Now, their absence feels like breathing room rather than a pain. You can tell you've matured at that point. Because living a flawless life isn't what peace is all about. It's about embracing life for what it is, chaotic, uncertain, yet nevertheless deserving of love. When you start comparing your life to other people's, it's easy to lose your tranquility. When you witness success and happiness on social media, your own life seems insignificant all of a sudden. But in contrast, there is no peace. It can be discovered in being content with where you are and what you have. You don't feel envious of others when you're completely at ease. You don't hunger for what isn't yours, but you're glad for other people. knowing that what is destined for you will never need to be pursued, you rest, love fully, and enjoy in silence. Peace is a daily practice, not a passive one. When you choose to remain silent rather than argue, you are practicing it. When you stop justifying your value, you are practicing it. When you decide to walk away rather than respond, you are practicing it. You are safeguarding your serenity each time you react with composure rather than pandemonium. There will occasionally be days when you lose that composure. Once more, you'll lose your temper, overthink, or feel exhausted. It's human, so don't see it as failure. Peace is something you return to repeatedly until it becomes your default state. It is not a permanent one. Stop when you see yourself faltering. Take a breath. Keep in mind that you have experienced worse and managed to maintain your equilibrium. Calm can always be restored. You simply need to make a new choice. Take some time to consider what is now stealing your tranquility the most. Is it a mental pattern, a habit, or a person? Consider whether it is worth your energy, whatever it may be. Find out whether clinging to it makes you more or less at peace. Because adding more won't bring you serenity. By eliminating what doesn't belong, it can be found. Perhaps it's overanalyzing. It can be attempting to solve something that isn't your responsibility. People who take more than they give could be the cause. You can let it go softly, without drama or resentment, no matter what it is. You don't stop caring when you let go. It implies that you give up attempting to control things that are not yours to carry. Peace will alter your perspective on the world. You are now quiet about the things that used to enrage you. The folks that formerly drained you are now weightless in your life. The turmoil that once engulfed you fades into the background. Because true peace means that you are at peace, not that everything is. And once you get there, you stop looking for attention or explanations. You move in a unique way. You react more slowly. Your smile has increased. You start to understand that maintaining your tranquility requires alignment rather than seclusion. You live your life in accordance with your intuition. Your energy is in line with what you sense to be true. The only explanation required if someone asks why you're quieter these days is, "I'm protecting my peace." Because your silence will never be questioned by those who understand calm. And the reason you wanted peace in the first place is because of people who doubt your silence. Take out. Keeping your peace is something you do all your life. It entails deciding on self-respect over approval, poise over emotion, and serenity over pandemonium. It entails saying no without feeling bad, leaving without harboring grudges, and leading a calm life without expressing regret. You can slow down, even if the world never does. You'll come to understand that peace was something you had to defend rather than something you had to find. The last section of this journey will be covered in the upcoming chapter, How to Live in Peace Even When People Try to Drag You Back into the Spotlight, how to allow your quiet to not only shield you but also to motivate others. When others are inspired by your silence. You now know that being silent is a sign of strength rather than weakness. It's the process by which you find yourself, safeguard your tranquility, and rise above the clamor. There's more to it, though, when your quiet starts to motivate people. It takes place in silence. It's not something you plan. You don't advocate for it. You simply lead a different life. People begin to notice when you stop trying to get attention, responding to everyone's opinions, and defending your value. They can see you've calmed down. They realize that you are no longer in need of proof. And that peaceful assurance is more powerful than words could ever be. At that point, your silence becomes your message rather than merely your defense. You begin to understand that you don't need to disclose your changes to others. They sense it. It's your energy that talks first. "I'm no longer living for chaos," your serene demeanor conveys. It will be misinterpreted by some. They will perceive you as chilly or aloof. However, those who are prepared to mature will comprehend. They will be motivated to safeguard their own tranquility as well. They are given permission to quit acting, pretending, and explaining when you remain silent. And that's how mending spreads, by setting a peaceful example rather than making noise. A teacher named Grace is the subject of a tale. She was surrounded by noise from both her personal life and the students at the busy high school where she worked. Pressure from family, controversy from co-workers, and unending demands. She used to become entangled in every dispute, every gossip, and every tense situation. Something changed after a year. Grace made the decision that she no longer wanted to live that way. She ceased gossiping. She slowed her haste to make everything right. She began having lunch by herself beneath a tree, reading, breathing, and allowing the world to be quiet for a while. She was first perceived as being antisocial. But gradually, more people began to join her. First one pupil, then two, and finally several instructors. With no noise, no complaints, just presence, that peaceful area turned into a sort of peace zone. Grace didn't give instructions. She simply led a tranquil life. She taught others how to find theirs in the process. It expands without sound, which is the power of quiet. Living in harmony teaches others how to treat you. Calm is not passivity, as you demonstrate to them. It's self-control. You demonstrate to them that sometimes the best response is to say nothing at all. You demonstrate to them that setting limits is a sign of respect rather than rejection. Unbeknownst to you, your quiet can occasionally act as a mirror, forcing others to confront their own cacophony. Your composure will make some people uneasy because it reveals the chaos they still harbor. It's all right. Don't compromise yourself to please them. Allow your tranquility to disturb what must be altered. Because remaining silent challenges the world around you in addition to protecting you. It demonstrates that you may grow without attention, love without conditions, and live without turmoil. Another story, Aaron, a male, used to become involved in every dispute at work. He would dispute whenever someone said something unfair. Every minor issue turned into a major one. He was exhausted and irritated by it. He made the decision to give up waging pointless battles one day. He ceased responding to emails that were passive-aggressive. He no longer participated in gossip sessions. After finishing his work, he went home and concentrated on finding tranquility. People initially tried to agitate him. They wanted the argumentative, former Aaron back. He no longer gave them that vitality, though. They quickly gave up trying. They began to appreciate his composure. He was even asked for counsel by some. Aaron's quiet altered the atmosphere of his entire workplace in addition to his inner tranquility. Silence has the power to change an entire setting without a single word. To inspire peace, you don't have to preach it. All you have to do is live it. Calm energy appeals to people because it seems uncommon. It feels secure. When everyone is yelling their thoughts and the world is noisy, the quiet person stands out because they are centered, not because they are hiding. It's clear from your quiet that you are aware of who you are. I don't have to demonstrate it. And when you live that way, you turn into a haven for other people. They will sense your composure even if they don't understand it. They will recall the tranquility of your presence. And perhaps that will inspire them to discover that inner serenity as well. But keep in mind that you don't need to be flawless to inspire others. It does not imply that you will always remain composed. You will. You will experience difficult days, angry outbursts, and weak points. That is a characteristic of humanity. The important thing is that you get back to tranquility more quickly. What really motivates people is that return, that quiet resilience. They can tell you don't allow your pain to define who you are. They can see that you are able to forgive without bringing up previous issues. They notice that you can leave without harboring resentment. Your quiet becomes a silent demonstration of strength. You'll discover that serenity alters your relationships as you proceed down this route. People who appreciate calm times will be drawn to you. Discussions gain depth. Time seems softer and slower. Without always using words, you begin to connect with others who get it. Additionally, you quit attempting to make connections that exhaust you. You discover that genuine connections respect your silence and don't require you to speak all the time. At that moment, you realize you've created something more profound, a life that isn't reliant on noise to feel alive. Think for a moment, somebody in your life exudes serenity? It's likely that you feel comfortable with them. You don't have to give them an explanation. Your silence is assisting you in becoming that kind of person. And one day, you'll bring the same tranquility to someone. They will remark, "There's something about you, you're just calm." They won't realize that it stems from hardship, heartache, or knowing when to give up. However, you will. You'll be aware of every moment of quiet that contributed to that tranquility. That is this journey's gift. You begin in suffering, developing quiet, discover serenity, and then you become serenity. Once misinterpreted, your silence turns into your love language. It lets everyone know you've recovered. It reassures others that recovery is achievable. Your composed demeanor speaks for itself, so you don't need to be the loudest person in the room anymore. Takeout. Your silence is no longer reserved for you alone. For the world that lost the ability to listen. It's for those who are still ensnared in the cacophony, seeking tranquility, and hesitant to cease elaborating. Quietly living your truth serves as a reminder to them that composure is wisdom rather than weakness. You remind them that peace is the ability to remain compassionate in a harsh environment, not the lack of conflict. You also remind yourself that being silent was never about being voiceless. It was about learning how to use it in a different way, with love, patience, and purpose. Your silence will ultimately teach them everything they need to know, in addition to providing them with all the information they require.